So I'm Danielle Bryan. I go by Danny. If you call me anything else, like, you probably do not know me. So my entire family calls me Danny or some derivative of that. And I am a retired emergency room nurse, travel nurse. If you don't know what a travel nurse is, essentially, after I got my few years of experience, I decided to start traveling to different parts of course, why is this coming out? Different parts of the country, helping hospitals that were in need, just like on a temporary basis. So they didn't need me like for the full year. I remember one of my assignments, like 7 nurses were on maternity leave. So I did that for the nurse for over 15 years before I retired. And I retired because of this short-term rental business, or Airbnb. Before that, I can definitely say I love being a nurse. I love taking care of patients. I love educating my patients. But what I didn't love, or what I grew to hate, is missing time with my kids, missing time with my loved ones. I always had to pick which holiday you're gonna work. It was never, I'm going to be off holidays, because the hospitals never closed. And I worked in the ER, so I was always at work. And I worked night shift. I don't know if anybody has ever worked a night shift job or gray shift job, but like, whew, your off day, your first off day is not really an off day, because you're in the bed all day.
Sleeping.
So doing that as a single mother, I missed a lot of time with my daughter. I was working, I was making money, I could, put her in extracurricular activities, but I missed a lot of time with her. And it really didn't hit me until I had my son, or I was pregnant with my son. So my daughter had been the only child for maybe about 10, 11 years, and now we're about to have another baby. So I just remember talking to her, letting her know, like, you still my girl, you still my broke best friend. And I just remember her telling me how she felt like I was never home. She's like, I can remember some weekend, she said, I didn't see you until Monday or Tuesday. And she wasn't lying, because I was working 2 and 3 jobs. I don't know if any of you are in nurses or in the healthcare field, but your one job is to make sure you're comfortable, your bills are paid. And the other job, a lot of nurses, we go and get a PRN job or a second or third job just to do extra stuff, vacations, buy, extra things that we want. Right. So I remember working a full-time job and a part-time job, and I literally was working like 70 hours a week. But when it came time to where both of those weekends collided, I literally left work. I left home on a Friday with a suitcase, and I didn't make it back home until Tuesday. So she didn't see me all weekend. All weekend. She didn't see me. And she's like, I just remember, I wouldn't see you till like Tuesday morning. And I felt like I was at home by myself. My teenage sister at the time, she lived with us, and I took care of her. She was about 19 or 20 or so. And she was there with her. And I was like, well, Paige was there with you. You weren't by yourself. She said, Mom, you really think Paige was watching me? And I sat there and I was like, well, kind of trying to process what she was saying. And I said, well, I had to make sure I can pay the mortgage and make sure you can go to cheerleading that you wanted to do. And she said, well, I would rather you just been at home. And I'm pregnant, big and pregnant, and I'm sitting there, and I have to acknowledge her feelings and what she's saying. And in that moment, I just felt shame and guilt and all these things, because what she wanted was me. And I could never give her that time back. I can go and work, and I can do all these things, right, and make money and buy stuff, but I can't buy time. I couldn't reverse the time and make it better. Like, all I could do was sit in it. And I just remember going in my room and crying. And I came out, got myself together, and I told her, and I said, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm never going to miss another moment with y'all. I said, this little baby that I got in my belly, I am going to homeschool him. He is not going to nobody's daycare. He's not going to anybody's school. And I'm never going to miss another moment, because I don't want you to feel like I'm not there. I didn't know how I was going to do it at the time. I remember writing in my journal, I'm going to retire and I'm going to, my baby, I'm going to homeschool my baby. I had no idea how I was going to do it because I was still a nurse. I wanted to start a business, didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I can say fast forward 5 years later, I was able to retire, and I've never put my baby in anybody's school or daycare, and I have never missed another moment. So that is my story. I really came upon Airbnb by accident, but I'm going to let Nancy introduce herself to y'all. And my printer wants to go crazy and print something, so I'm going to mute myself.
I was going to say, go ahead and tell that story, but I guess not. Hey, y'all, I'm Nancy Clark. I don't have a nickname. I just go by Nancy. I don't have a middle name. They didn't want to give me one, so I'm just Nancy. I'm so happy and excited to be here. I am also a nurse. I've always wanted to be a nurse. I'm that little girl that used to pretend to give her grandfather shots and watch Bill Cosby all the time when it's on, and pretend to be Bill Cosby and pretend to shoot my grandfather. And so I knew I was going to be in healthcare. I didn't know I was going to be a nurse. I started off wanting to go to medical school. Couldn't quite afford that. Then I was going to go to PA school. Couldn't do those hours because I had to work. So then I decided to go to nursing school. Went to nursing school, worked full time, clinicals during the week. God, bringing back the memories all weekend long. I'm still in clinicals. We have classes, all that. Finally made it through. AA degree, working as a nurse, 6 figures. This is back in New York. I live in Maryland now. That would never happen here in Maryland. So I was in New York. And so I thought I was on cloud nine. I grew up culturally with my parents telling me things that you need to do is always be respectful. You're going to get your education and you're going to get a good job. And I checked off all those boxes, and that's what I did. Then I moved to Maryland. I took a $10 an hour pay cut. I went into the operating room as an intern. But I do push myself. I was in the OR 10 plus years. I started as an intern, and by the time I was done, I was running the OR as a director. As a director of the operating room in an area in Maryland where not too many people look like me was when I started to wake up. I loved nursing. I still watch nursing shows or OR shows, and my husband just the other day was saying, do you miss the hospital? No, honey, I like the OR. I don't miss the hospital. I like the OR. I like watching the show. That's as far as we gonna go. But working in the OR, and in that role, a Black woman, right, running and operating, and having my direct reports tell me that they will not do as I say because of the color of my skin, is when I decided to wake the hell up. All right. I decided to wake up at that point in time. I lasted there 3 years, and I lasted through it 3 years because at the end of the day, I was in charge. At the end of the day, I was building my resume, right? So I didn't let them get the best of me, but best believe every single day I had tears in my eyes for at least about 1.5 years. Then I was like, whatever. So I finished that. I ended up going to another job in kidney and dialysis. It was an administrator there. After I said I would never have direct reports again, I did it again. That was okay. They used and abused me there. And I am happy to say that I left that job officially November of last year, November 30th, and retired from nursing, and partnered with Danny to run our business together. So it's not so much that we don't love being a nurse. We love serving others. We're just doing it in a different capacity. We have worked on our minds. We have shifted our mindset. We have learned and understood our why, and we put the work in, and we made it happen. And we don't, and I always preface this to say, we don't tell people we're retired nurses to go tell anybody to go quit your job. That's not for everybody. That is a decision for me. I had to really pray on. I remember September 21st, 2021. I remember the date vividly. I sat at the same desk I'm sitting now and wrote my quit letter. So it was intentional. It was a plan. A year later, I was able to retire. I am married. I have a 15-year-old and I have an 11-year-old, both in private school. So the decision is very thoughtful, but there was intention and there was a plan and there was the work that goes into it. So if you guys, and let me tell you the journey of how I got into Airbnb. Then we gotta go back to Danny because hopefully her printer is fixed now. She can tell you her story. And I always tell people this, and I say this without like, it's my journey. And I started where you guys are right now, right? I started business by accident as a CPR instructor. I got it. Then I say, hey, why don't I do a business? And then I got into this nursing group that Danny was in. And I'm looking at all these, it was Black women, Black nurses with all these businesses. And my mind was blown because I didn't grow up seeing all that stuff, right? I did what I did. I checked off the boxes and I had a good job and that was it. My mind was blown. She was teaching Airbnb and I couldn't let go of it. I said, I'll look into it next year. God said, no, it's going to be now. I said, no, I'll do it next year. God said, no, it's going to be now. I did the challenge. I did the masterclass. And then I turned around and I said, Danny, I want you to mentor me. And she said, no, you don't need a mentor. I said, Danny, I need to mentor me. So she gave me a whole bunch of crap. She didn't want to mentor me. True story. Okay. So I went to someone else, got freaking.
I was not mentoring at the time.
She wasn't, but I went to someone else. So you understand how Danny and I feel. We both been scammed. Okay. I went to someone else, got scammed, never got my money back. Okay. Then I see her on Facebook talking about how she's going to start mentorship. Really, Danny? Okay. So I became her mentee. Okay, so I joined her mentorship, even though she didn't think I wanted to. But the reason why I did that is because I don't have time and money to waste because I've been there and done that. So I already took, her challenger. So I already knew like what she was going to drop. And I knew I was ready to go get these units. And I knew that I needed somebody next to me to tell me, here's what you need to do and not waste my time. So she gave in. She let me join the daggone mentorship and pay for that. And I was able, my husband and I, we were knocking out. I took 2 weeks off the end of September, started off with 2 units. And then in 3 months, we had 5 and we just kept getting units, right? So that's my Airbnb journey. A year later, about a year later, that she and I decided to partner up. She could tell that's how it's story. But she and I decided to partner up, and it afforded me the opportunity to serve moms, nurses, people who are like me, to give you the inspiration to say, hey, if I can do this, like me, I don't know nothing about business. I know a lot now. I didn't then. You guys too can do this. But I was intentional. I got into the room and I invested in myself. Back to you, Danny, and the printer.
The shade. So essentially,
am I lying? Am I lying?
Let me fix it. So when I say I got into this by accident, I was intentionally starting another business, and I came across a webinar where someone said that I can leverage somebody else's property to make money. Right. And so I went to the webinar. It was a 3-day webinar, and I was like literally blown away. At the time, I was on a COVID contract, working 6 days a week, 12-hour days. And so I had the information, I had started, but it was hard for me to like be making phone calls and emailing when I'm working 10-hour days, 10, 11, 12-hour days. And so I invested in a turnkey. So by the time I got off that assignment, I had units, and I had one. And by the time I came home in June, I had 3, then I had 5, and I look up and I have all of these units. So I didn't feel I was in a place to mentor anybody else, right? So a lot of times when you're learning something, and you feel like, oh, I don't know enough to teach anybody else. And so that's where I was with Nancy. But people kept asking. I remember being on consultations with people, and I think at the time I was charging maybe $150, being on the phone with people for 3 and 4 hours. In those consultations, people literally walked away and were able to go and get multiple units, right? Because I do this, or I started it and I did it, right? Because I really wanted people to win, right? This was life-changing for myself. So I'm like, I'm going to give you everything, right? We'll get started. but I was on the phone for hours, and Nancy asked me about mentorship. I was like, oh, I don't mentor yet. Like, I don't know anything about that. So let me send
I
you
don't know how
here.
that's gonna look. That's exactly what she
Like,
said. I don't know what that looks like.
right. So I sent her to someone else that I knew and that I didn't do business with her, but I knew her. I developed a relationship. And so when I circle back around and kind of asked Nancy, like, how was your experience? Like, you good? And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh my God. Right. Referring somebody. And so and eventually I got a mentor, right? She picked this business for me because I told her, I said, well, I want to start a financial literacy business. And that's what I'm working on. I had a website, I was building a team, I was getting all these trainings. And so I went to my mentor's house and I was telling her about my plan for the other business. And then she said, well, I see you posting about Airbnb. Tell me more about that. So I told her, and she said, you know what? When you talk about that, you light up. Said, I think that you should table that other business and you need to focus on Airbnb and you need to help other people get started in Airbnb. And I was like, well, okay. Right. And I tell my mentor all the time, her name is Sasha McCray. I said, had it been 2-3 years previous, I would not have listened to you. Right. I would have told myself, I can do both of these. Right. But I thought to myself in that moment, I said, I am paying her because she is somewhere where I want to be. She is a nurse. She's retired. You invest in real estate. And so I pay her to be my mentor for a reason. I listened to her, and literally after that, my business, Airbnb, everything took off. And so now you see Nancy did become my mentee, and now she has also been successful. So I'm glad that you guys are here, and we will go ahead and get started. We won't bore you with more of our business. So today we are going to be covering investment strategies, like knowing whether or not you want to be active or passive and what that looks like. We're going to totally break that down. Business structure, business credit. We'll go over that briefly. I do share book that totally breaks it down for you, gives you a lot of vendors that you can use when you're thinking about starting your business credit journey with your EIN. Only it's like a 100-page ebook that we drop in the group. How to use other people's money and how to find a team. So number one, when we talk about investment strategies, I want people to know when you're coming into Airbnb, and the way that the model that we go after is called rental arbitrage. Essentially, rental arbitrage is the act of your business, right? That the most common one is an LLC, right? You can get S Corp, C Corps. There are a few different business entities, but the most common business entity that people use is called a limited liability company, or LLC. You go and you register an LLC, right? You get your EIN, you register the LLC with your Secretary of State, whatever state you live in. You register with them. You make sure you go open up a bank account, right? But your business that you formed, essentially your business is renting the place, right? So you don't have to have a whole boatload of money somewhere or a stash up under your mattress with all this money. Your business can go and rent apartments or homes for you to start your business. So that is what we will be focusing on for the next 30 days is rental arbitrage. If you have an investment property, that is great. Right? We can show you how to pull your numbers or do the market research in the coming days to make sure that that investment property may work. But we're not teaching you the model that you have to go and buy properties. You can rent properties and it is legal, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm subletting under my personal name, that's a totally different subject, right? But your business will be utilizing that place for business purposes, right? And I tell people all the time that Airbnb isn't your business. Whether you have a short-term rental company, a mid-term rental company, a corporate housing company, your business is not an Airbnb business, right? And when I say short-term rental, that's anything under 30 days. So if someone's staying with you for under 30 days, that's short-term rental. Someone's staying longer than 30 days, is considered a midterm rental. And corporate housing is essentially your like business to business, right? So you working directly with nursing agencies or military agencies or insurance agencies to house their clients. Okay, so, but when I talk about active and passive investing, Airbnb short-term rental, it does not start off passive, right? Passive investing is me just taking money that I work for, giving it to Nancy. She's already in this business. I give it to Nancy and say, hey, you're in Airbnb. Can you take this money and get me a unit and you run it? Just send me the profits every month. That's passive. I don't have to do anything. Somebody is already doing something that they love, doing something that they're experienced in. I'm giving them money. Hey, I want to invest with you. Here's my money. Take my money, put it to work, and then return it to me with interest. That is passive. I have friends that do real estate flips, right? They have experience in that. They love it. That's what they do. I work and I'm like, I don't have time to learn about flipping real estate, but you already do it, right? So instead of you going to the bank, I'll loan you 50K. You return it with interest, whether that's 10%, whatever terms you guys come up with, right? That is literally just my money working. A lot of people tell you that Airbnb is passive and it's not. It doesn't start off that way. You can make it passive, but it starts off very active, meaning you're going to have to go furnish your place. You got to go find the place. You got to get the landlord or the apartment complexes to say yes. You got to respond to your guests, right? You got to communicate with your cleaning team. So it doesn't start off passive. So I like to tell people that from the very beginning. And I want you guys to really think about, how do you want to invest? Do you want it to be active or do you want it to be passive? We have come across a lot of people that are like, I work 2 jobs. I'm going back and I'm getting my master's. And they obviously don't have time to start the business, which is okay. But know that up front so you don't get overwhelmed on the back end.
And to add to that, if you don't have time to run the business, like Danny said, it's okay. And there are other ways where you can still get into the business, but you can get a property manager or a co-host to help answer inquiries and stuff like that. So we do have clients who are in that situation where they're just working too much. They got their units and we pretty much co-host for them. So we're dealing with the guest that's coming in and they're getting the revenue. So there are so many different ways that you could get into the business. So don't feel like when we say that, like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. Because majority of us, when we start, we're working and it is busy if inquiries are coming in. So you too can still start. Just know that you're going to need somebody to help you kind of run the business in the sense of hosting and answering the inquiries on the back end for you.
So number one, with any investment, I like to ask people, and I want you to think about really why you want to start the business. I know myself, I have gone through a few different businesses that I have started. But I found once I actually got into it, I was doing it, I was making money. I wasn't really passionate about it. So for me, I was like, okay, I don't want to do this, right? It was easy for me to quit. It was easy for me to put it on the back burner and be like, you know what, I'm gonna take a break. Right? Because I didn't really know my why. Right. And so when I told you that story about me and my daughter and my pregnant little belly, right, that's when I figured out my why. Right. Because I kept saying, oh, I want to create generational wealth and da 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 da. Right. I really figured out my why when my daughter told me that she wanted me and versus me putting her in any extracurricular activities. Right. So my why is having more time with my children. Me not having to ask for a day off, me not trying to pick between which holiday I'm going to work, me owning my time, right? I don't have to put him in daycare. I don't have to ask my boss, oh, I remember my daughter got sick. She was home with my parents one summer in St. Louis. I'm in Maryland. She was sick, had pneumonia, and I'm trying to scramble and find somebody to work for me because I didn't want to call off, right? And my baby's sick. I don't have to make that decision anymore. So what I really want you guys to really think about, why are you starting your business? Because when it gets hard, and it will get hard, you're going to have some days where you want to quit and you want to give up. When you think about your why, that is going to keep you going. That is going to be the gas that keeps you on the road, right? It's a lot of days where I'm like, I just throw everything away, right? But I think about my kids, and I think about going back to the nursing floor and missing time again with them. And I don't want to do that. So I really, really, really want you guys to think about tonight, why do you want to start this business? Because that will keep you motivated, that will keep you pushing, and that will keep you going.